All right, welcome to 5-3 notes, rate of change and slope. And so the target for today is I can find slopes and rates of change. All right, we're going to start off with a problem about a ski lift, okay? So we are ready to hit the slopes. And as you can see, the ski lift has at different times the ski lift rises, seems like at a quicker rate or is steeper. So we're going to calculate the rate of change, the vertical change and the horizontal change between points A and B, B and C, C and D. All right, so let's start off and take a look at the vertical change from A to B. When I look at vertical change, I always want to take a look at my scale. And I see that my scale here really is going by tens. Only every other number are labeled, okay? So go ahead and fill in the missing numbers on both the X and the Y. All right, so the vertical change, remember, vertical change goes up and down, and then horizontal change goes left to right. So first we're going to talk about the vertical change from A to B, B to C, and then C to D. So if I take a look at my graph, between A and B, the vertical change along the y-axis is really 10. From B to C, I have 10, 20, 30, 40. And from C to D, another 10. So let's go ahead and write those numbers here. 10 feet, 40 feet, and then another 10 feet. Now let's talk about the horizontal change, right, which goes left to right. We're going to find the horizontal change, A to B, B to C, and C to D. So let's take a look, counting by tens, 10, 20, 30. From B to C, 10, 20, 30. And then from C to D, another 10, 20, 30. So they're all 30. 30 feet. All right, so we're going to talk about the ratio of the vertical change to the horizontal change, which really is the rate of change. So from A to B, I have a 10-foot vertical change over a 30-foot horizontal change, which can reduce to 1 foot vertically to 3 feet horizontally. B to C, I have 40 feet over 30 feet, which can be 4/3. And then C to D, another 10-foot vertical change over 30-foot horizontal change, which again reduces to 1/3. And now my next question is number 4. Which section of the lift is the steepest and why? Well, if I look at my picture, you can see that it looks like this part is actually my steepest. And it indeed is, because if I look at my ratios, I have 1 to 3, 4 to 3, 1 to 3. This one sure is my steepest. It has the largest ratio. So from B to C, because it has the largest ratio or slope or rate of change. All right, so rate of change we are going to use as the way we define it. We're going to talk about it a couple different ways, but the change in Y, or the vertical change over the change in X, or the horizontal change. All right, so rate of change is your change in your Y, which is typically your dependent variable, over your independent variable. We'll see this a few times throughout the notes. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to actually skip this problem and move to this table on the next page. For the data given below in the table, find the rate of change from 3 to 7 hours, and then write that rate of change as a sentence. So if I look at my table, it looks like I have test scores, and depending on the number of hours I study, I get a specific test score. So I'm going to be looking at the rate of change between 3 to 7 hours. All right, so let's start here, hours of study. So 3 to 7 is an increase of 4 hours, and 80 to 90 is an increase of 10 percentage points. So my rate of change, my test score would be dependent on the number of hours I study, So my test score increase, okay, would be over my hours of increase. So 10 over 4, which when I divide that, it means I really get 2.5 over 1. So as a sentence, I can look, my label here would be percentages per hour. So for every 1 hour I study, my grade increases, my test grade, not grade, but test grade increases by 2.5%. And that's what this ratio is saying. All right. Looking at these graphs, I want you to highlight or make bold the lines that I am making. Okay, we're going to be talking about these lines that I'm making in red. We're going to be talking about the slope as if they are either running up or positive, falling down negative, not going anywhere up or down, so that's 0, or not possible, undefined. So reading left to right, my first picture shows a negative line, or like a fall, a negative fall. I would much rather be snow tubing down this hill than climbing up this hill, because this one, number 2, is a positive line. Number 3 has a 0 slope. Okay, you're not going up or down, you are just essentially running on a track. And number 4 is impossible. We'll call that undefined. You cannot teleport straight up or down. So when we're describing slopes of lines, we're going to have one of these types of slopes, either a negative slope, a positive slope, a 0 slope for a horizontal line, or an undefined slope for a vertical line. So let's practice with some of this. We'll fill in some notes here. All the graphs such as above, graphs have something called a slope. It describes the steepness of a line. Okay, so we always read graphs left to right. So find the slope of a line, we count the number of units up or down, and then we also count the number of units left to right. Important, left to right. So let's find the slope of this graph right here, and then we'll come back up and do the steps, okay? So remember, I want to find 2 points that cross the grid lines. Sometimes they're given to us, sometimes you have to find them. Notice this point would not be a good point to choose because it's not at an intersection. Okay, so we want to choose points that cross the grid line perfectly. I'll always start left to right, so I'm going to read my graph left to right. I come to this point first. I will rise, because I got to get to that point, I'm going to rise 2, and I'm going to run 2. When I say I rise, I go from -1 up to +1, which is an increase of 2 units. And over here, I'm running. I'm going from -2 on the x over to 1 on the x. So that means I'm increasing, not by 2. Did I say 2? I meant 3. Plus 3. All right. So my slope is, again, my ratio of my rise over my run, okay, or my vertical change to my horizontal change. So 2/3. And I cannot reduce that. So you probably heard me say something, rise over run. Rise over run is describing a vertical change over a horizontal change, which is what we saw on page 1. Okay, so change in y over your change in x. All right, when we find the slope, we're going to cross this bottom one out. We want to go up or down, then over to the right. okay? Let's practice here with 2, 3, and 4, and we're actually going to start with 4 and go backwards. I read my graph left to right. I hit this point first. I need to go down, right, along a city block of like New York City. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. I went down. I went from 3 to 0. So I went down 3 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My slope is -3/6, which can reduce to -1/2. This is your full credit answer. -3/6 would be like your half credit answer. Okay? Always reduce if you can. All right, let's go ahead back to number 3. You can even foreshadow, right, or think about what kind of sign your slope should have. This is a negative line, right? This is one that I would be liking to go down on a snow tube, okay, which means I should have a negative slope. So again, I'm going to read left to right, hit this point first, down 2, over 1, 2, 3, 4. So -2/4, yes, it reduces to -1/2. And we're going to go to number 2 and see a vertical line. And if we remember from the first page, it's impossible to have a slope of a vertical line. I can't teleport up or down. So as I read my graph left to right, I can start at this point. It really doesn't matter, but I'm going to increase by 1, 2, 3, 4. So I go up 4, but I didn't go anywhere left or right. If you were to put 4 divided by 0 in the calculator, you would get a divide by 0 error, which gives you your undefined slope. So this is practicing finding the slope using rise over run. Now, this page down here, what I want you to do is I want you to plot the following points, draw a line, then find the slope of the line by drawing a triangle. Go ahead, hit pause, and then come back and check your work with mine. All right, hopefully you have these 4 done. Your slopes for numbers 1 and 2, we have 3/4 and 0. And your slopes for number 3 and 4, we have undefined. You must write the word undefined in -6/5. Okay, I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching.